Hi, welcome to Lessons I Learned in Law. This week I'm joined by Doug McClure. Doug's a senior lawyer at Northrop Grumman, which is probably an organisation that you've not heard of, but a massive global business. They are one of the largest contractors in the aerospace and defence space, so fairly divisive sector for most people, but very much at the forefront and in the press a lot at the moment with everything that's going on around the world. Doug's been with the business for 8 years, and prior to that he spent a lot of time in heavy industries, in transport, but at the heart of most of the organisations that he's worked within is procurement and sales. At the moment he supports Northrop Grumman's European operations and their risk management and collaborating their sales function and their procurement function in the US. This is really interesting if you're working in a large corporate where internal touch points and internal networking is really important and can set you up well. Doug talks about how important it is to over communicate and to manage expectations in a business like that. So there's lots in there for everyone, and I hope you enjoy. Hi Doug.
Hi Scott.
Thank you for joining me. How are things?
Good. Thanks very much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. First, I asked this of everyone, but first podcast recording.
First podcast. Yeah. Good. So keen to see how it pans out.
In the hot
Make
seat.
sure I try not to mess up too much.
So I've given an introduction as best I can. It'd be great if you could share with us a bit about your current role and give us a bird's eye view of your situation at the moment.
Sure. So currently a senior counsel at Northrop Grumman. Been there for about 8 years now. Nice. Interesting range of work. We have a smallish team in the UK. Yeah. In fact, there's 3 of us in the UK. 2 lawyers in Europe as well. With that team, we cover all of Europe. We've got 1 paralegal and 1 PA.
Okay.
But of course, Northrop Grumman is a huge organisation.
Yeah.
Vast majority of the folk are in the US. So we cover a wide range of things and are expected to be able to pick things up and, run with them. Yeah. So we embrace it.
Nice. And for those that don't know the brand, tell us a bit about Northrop Grumman.
So it's probably one of the biggest companies folk haven't heard of. It's a huge aerospace defense company, as I said, primarily US based. We do a lot of work for the US government, the UK government as well. Okay. So interesting industry, interesting times.
Yeah, lots going on. Lots going on just now, I imagine. Good and good. We'll jump into that then. Mm-hmm. So you've been there 8 years.
Yes, that's right.
And by the accent, where does that
originate? So born in Zimbabwe actually, and then went to high school, university in South Africa. Qualified in South Africa, worked there, private practice for a little bit, and then came over to the UK. And been since then. I was at London Underground, Inventus Rail, KBR, and then Northrop Grumman. So
nice.
Mostly in-house. For a long time actually. That's where my natural inclination goes.
All right. Cool. All right, we'll jump into more of that in a bit. So we're here to talk about your 3 lessons. If you could start by sharing lesson 1 with us.
Sure. Lesson 1. Okay. Well, it's pretty basic actually when you think about it, and that is it's all about communication and the ability to communicate, the ability to build relationships and trust. You can be the best lawyer in the world, the best technical lawyer, but if you can't get your message across, you're not going to have an impact. Right. And that's especially so when you work in an in-house environment. So it is all about that. It is all about being able to get your point across, know how to communicate things, when to communicate things, and building those personal relationships in order to be able to do that.
Okay.
I've had experiences in the past where, you're working with someone, and everyone's got their own mindset, of course, and everyone is mostly trying to do the right thing, what they see as the right thing for the business, but you'll have differing views, and sometimes someone will come at it from a completely different angle. And so you've got to work out how you can communicate with them and get your message across to them.
Right.
But they've got to be from their point, in a space to listen.
And receptive,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's how you manage those conversations to get them receptive, and then how you manage the conversation through the discussion, and you show alignment, you show commitment, you show your understanding of their needs and what they're trying to do, and that all helps. So that is really the most critical component.
Nice. And do you have a bit of a mental playbook that you would walk through to build those communication channels?
I mean, I think a lot of it is about personal integrity, kind of delivering on what you say you'll do, being trusted to, if you make a commitment, you deliver on it. But you have to adapt your behaviors to every certain circumstance and to different individuals. Some people, react in different ways, and so you need to be able to adopt your own behaviors and change, and as the circumstances dictate.
Yeah. I can imagine to changing it to the audience. Who in an aerospace and defence company, who are your main points of contact? Like, who are your stakeholders internally?
Well, so internally we have two. So we have the local businesses. So when we're trying to win a bid or deliver on a program, and that's important because they're the ones who will be on the ground doing things, or because we are generally a smaller part of the business in the US business, a lot of the kind of high-value corporate decisions will be taken at our HQ. So a lot of that, and the really important elements to that, are explaining the risks to the team in the US, making sure that they manage and understand them, making sure that they're comfortable that you're across them.
Right.
And again, that comes down to your personal capital.
Yeah. Okay. And having been in, have you changed your style over the years from being in private practice and working there to now communicating in-house?
I think the communications are just different. When you're in-house, you're expected to know more about the business, really. And so that's really what it is. I think I speak to everybody the same sort of way. I'm pretty down to earth and relaxed with my conversations. So that hasn't changed. It's just being able to relate. If you can demonstrate in a business that you understand what the business priorities are, that's so helpful.
Yeah. And the defence sector and the aerospace space. Your background before that was in tangible, I guess, heavier industries.
So construction, quite construction based. So London Underground, so heavy industry, and then Invensys Rail again, signalling systems across the globe. There's been a lot of global experience as well, which has been quite cool. And then KBR, which is, they do a lot of defence, actually. I mean, they're largely an oil and gas company, but they do lots of defence and a bit of space now as well. So, yes, quite a range.
All linked up. And how did you, I guess, the defence sector for us as recruiters is one of those spaces where there's not a lot known about it and what it's like to work there, maybe what a lawyer does. Like, how did you, I guess, what attracted you to the sector?
I mean, it's a sector which is controversial, probably less controversial now. It's obviously all over the news.
Yeah.
We had Mark Rutter just the other day, I think yesterday, saying, prepare to spend more on defence, and countries that don't want to, learn to speak Russian. So there's a huge focus.
Yeah.
We had the Strategic Defence Review in the UK just last week. So governments are focused on defence like they haven't been for a number of years. And so it's very topical. And I kind of think it's, for somebody who's fairly patriotic, I think it's the right thing to do. I like to be in an industry where you think you're fundamentally doing good.
Yeah.
You're doing something that's good for the country. So, yeah, that's what attracted me to it.
Nice.
Yeah, and of course, it's an interesting and challenging range of work. It's very diverse.
And I guess those sectors, as a lawyer, where there is that controversy or the regulation and heavily regulated the government contracting must be huge.
It
huge
is.
Issues.
Yeah, there are. I mean, I think government always wants to do the right thing. They want to demonstrate value to the shareholders, which are the taxpayers and people in the country, the voters. They want to ensure that it's competitively fair, and they want to ultimately achieve their aims of making sure that they can deliver fairly, without favouring one competitor or another. And so they are very regulated. You know, there's in the UK there are set forms of contract or set form of contract terms they use. So you need to familiarize yourself with those. You need to understand what the government's approach to risk is. You know, and that obviously needs to be balanced against the company you work for's approach to risk. And you need to deal with the mindset as well. That this is an important procurement for lots of them are important procurements for the countries. So they are high profile and they get a lot of attention. You know.
Yeah.
And no one wants that to go wrong.
No, absolutely not. No, high risks, high stakes.
Yes.
And is it common? Is there like government approvals and government sign-offs on classified information? Is that something that the lawyers that have to be signed off on?
There's lots of security elements. I mean, there are lots of things that I can't know about, depending on your security classification levels, particularly some of our US type programs, it's restricted to US nationals and local programs, again, will be restricted to UK nationals. And so, there's a lot, and there's a lot of focus, there's a lot of approvals. Some things will need Cabinet Office approval, depending on the range and the volume of the procurement, the value, etc. Yes.
Yeah. Nice. All right. And you. So, what brought you to the UK?
So my folks are Scottish originally.
Oh,
so,
the name suggests.
Exactly. Yeah.
Giveaway.
So I had family over here. I qualified in South Africa, and then I wanted to travel, frankly, see a bit of the world, and work at the same time, and kind of stuck around for a bit.
Nice. Yeah. And do you travel with the role?
I do.
now?
I do. Yeah. I go wherever the contracts take me. Which is mostly Europe and America. So, yeah.
Nice. And the communication piece. You touched on the diversity in the organisation and different backgrounds. How do you find there's different communication works when you're dealing with people from different jurisdictions or different backgrounds?
Well, different backgrounds generally, yes. I mean, I think I've worked in different types of industries. I think the one thing that stands out from working at Northrop is that there are some incredibly bright people that you work with, and that's really interesting. You're people who are passionate about the kind of work that they do, and so they are deeply invested about what they're trying to do, and so you need to understand that when you're having a conversation, and you need to kind of sometimes manage their expectations about what is practically achievable in the time frame. So you do need to adjust that. But yes, it's good. It's exciting to work in a dynamic environment like that.
Cool. All right, we'll move on to lesson 2.
Lesson 2. So that is find solutions.
Okay.
Yeah. So no one wants to be the lawyer that says no, and none of us should ever be the lawyer that just says no. You've got to think about things innovatively. But in order to do that, you need to understand the business. You need to understand what you're being asked, why you're being asked it, what your company's attitude to risk is, what your company's aim is. Have they been burnt by a past experience that's shaping it? I mean, companies go through cycles. They go through a procurement that goes wrong, and then they're paranoid about it, and then they put in lots of regulation and makes it somewhat challenging sometimes, and then the winds drop off, and then it all loosens up. So it depends where you are in the cycle. So where's the company in the cycle? Are they in a growth cycle? Yeah. So you need to understand that in order to be able to offer the solutions. You need to demonstrate that you also understand. And this again comes back to the communication piece. You need to understand that they are trying to achieve an aim, and your role as a business in-house lawyer is to help them enable it. So there might be things that they can't do, but where they can't do something, you need to try and find, where you can, a way of enabling them moving forward, even if it's in a slightly different way. And you deal with this all the time when you're negotiating contracts. For example, the other side will have a view on a particular term, and they'll go, can't have that, there's no way that I'm ever going to sell that. And you'll have your own view, go, there's no way I'm not going back. unless I get something in this contract that gives me that level of protection. So it's a case of, well, how do you communicate that point to them? How do you offer a solution? Is there a third way, so to speak? Is there a way that you can give them not necessarily exactly everything they want, but what they need? And will that be sufficient for you to be able to kind of get comfortable with it as well? So it is finding those opportunities to, look at things through a slightly different light, and that's down to experience, and that's down to an understanding of the business, and lessons you've learned in the past.
And knowing who to ask, I imagine, as well, as to where it goes. Has there been a time where you've had to say no? Is that there's something that just isn't right, or
there has been a time, but I mean that's very rare, and that's normally when someone says, I've got to be in country. Well, not normally, but it's happened before when somebody says, I've got to be in country next week. I need to be there for 6 months, but I don't quite have the visa yet. Can I go? Well, no. Because at all times you need to make sure that your company is protected, that the people that work at your company comply with the law as part of your values and the company's values. So aside from kind of critical things like that, where it's a flat no, and again, even then, it's you can't go now, but put it off 2 weeks. Can you get an expedited visa? Whatever the case might be, you can't do exactly what you're wanting to achieve. But is there a way that I can help you achieve part of what you're trying to do without causing the company or anybody else any difficulties?
And where's the company's headquartered? Whereabouts? Which state in the US? Is it in?
So Washington. So it used to be LA based, and now DC.
Right.
Yeah, but they're all over the states. It's like 80,000, 90,000 people in the company. So
How do you in a business like that, and we're talking about communication, how do you network? And it must be a job in itself, just networking internally.
Knowing who to speak to. Yeah. It's tough. I mean, actually, the company does have one thing now, which, they've had it for a few years, where you can literally type in somebody's name and there's a little photograph of them, and you can see where they are in the company, who they report into. So that's really, really helpful if you're trying to connect. Oh, I need to speak to somebody, so who in their team would be the right person to speak to? That's super helpful. And I've been in organizations where you just don't have a clue. But of course, you then have the challenge. People move roles, and even in the law department, there are loads of lawyers in the law department. There are people that will be supporting one business division, and then they might a year later move to another business division, or they slightly change the name of business division. But then it's just picking up the phone to the people that you know and that you work with frequently and say, who's the best person to speak on this?
And keeping in touch. In terms of that dynamics, KBR, US based, but like London, London Underground, and that space. What's the differences of working in a US headquartered and being?
So Inventus was UK. It was a UK PLC, and obviously KBR and Northrop Grumman US. London Underground slightly different because it's more public sectory. So a very different dynamic there as well. And I've worked in companies, even when the HQ isn't US, or even if it's UK, but you have a subsidiary in Spain or France or Italy, there's a very different dynamic in those offices, and you kind of need to adapt your communication levels to the different offices. I remember kind of working with one particular company, and they just had this. They had this way of communicating back to head office at the time, which was never well received. It was, everything is impossible. It cannot be done, So they weren't aware of that kind of how it's being heard. And it's important. I think you bear in mind how your listener or how the people you're communicating are hearing you. It's not necessarily what you say, although, I mean, that also matters. But it's how you say it. It's not just a no. It's you can't do it that way. So you do need to adapt.
I think it's really important to think like what's somebody saying when I'm not in the room? How would they talk? How would they talk about me? How would I want to be perceived? I think is a good hat to have on. Nice. And outside of work, what's your South African or Zimbabwe? What's your passion?
Rugby. I love watching rugby. Big fan of the Springboks. Been to watch them in a few countries.
Nice.
Yeah, no, that's good. Well, actually, any rugby, to be honest. I grew up watching the Six Nations with my dad. He was a very passionate Scot.
Yeah.
Still remember the 1990.
Successful.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So yeah, that's great.
I was in Marseille for the World Cup last year, the year before. Can't remember. Blurring into one. But yeah, the South Africa against Scotland, we got pretty badly beaten. Or we didn't really show up, to be honest. But yeah, good.
Yeah, that was
good,
a tough group.
Crowd.
It was a tough
It was
group.
tough. Yeah, really hard. It was. And we didn't get off to the best start, so we were in a bit of an uphill struggle. But yeah, did you play rugby?
Yeah, a long time ago, but I haven't got the physique for it.
Right.
I was more on the nippy side.
Okay, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not the most.
And you can imagine playing in South Africa. There's some big blokes.
Big guys, yeah. I don't know what they feed them. Yeah, they're huge. But it's
Did you
one
play
of those
rugby?
sports. No, football. Yeah, yeah, soccer. But yeah, it's one of those. Football doesn't really translate into older years either. I feel ankles and everything. I think rugby's even less transferable unless you're straight into touch. But
golf, I play golf as well.
Golf,
Yep.
yeah.
Very badly.
Okay.
Very, very badly. But it's fun to get out there.
Yeah. Is it an industry is defence and aerospace industry? Is it quite sociable in that sense and quite in terms of networking?
I mean, I think things have changed. Years ago, you used to go to conferences and, there'd be a day off and people would go to the spa or, go to a golf day. Now it's much more focused around work. It's all budgets. It is sociable, but yeah, that's probably more on the BD side.
Yeah, on that side. Yeah,
exactly.
Always the case.
Yeah.
Cool. So we'll move on to lesson 3.
Lesson 3, again, there's a kind of theme through all of these, and that is manage expectations. Don't let people down or try not to. And, you'll be working and you will often have a load of things on. You'll have competing priorities and people jumping up and down for your attention. It's important to recognize what really is critical for the business and critical for your kind of line management. Because to someone who wants something, that's what's the most important to them.
Yeah, of course.
And so sometimes you have to say, look, it's going to take me a day, 2 days, 3 days in order to be able to get back to you. It's much better to manage that expectation than underdeliver. I mean, so I always try to underpromise a little bit, not too much, because then they'll always say Doug does this, and then it comes sooner. But that's the aim. Over deliver and underpromise, but not too much.
Fine balance.
It is. It really is. So yeah, that's the thing to do. Just make sure that you're communicating. You're communicating what you need from them. Because sometimes, I mean, I've had things in the past where someone says, "Oh, here's a contract for you to review," and they ping it over, and you go, "Well, what is this? I need a bit of background. Have you looked at it? Have you got any concerns? What are we trying to do? You can't just toss it over the fence. So you need to be able to communicate your expectations of them as well. So,
and what? How do you balance that in the sector? I guess it's the crisis management are different from what other sectors may consider a crisis, but how do you balance that expectation management in a situation like that where there's all hands to the pump or a crisis situation?
Well, so I mean, it's tough. You just sometimes you have to put in the extra hours. Sometimes you have to say, well, I'm sorry, I'm staying late tonight. I'm working late. I need to get this sorted. But it's about balance as well. And you'll often have, so I support Northrop Grumman is made up of 4 sectors, and there'll be two sectors that are both wanting your attention on something, and they're both equivalent sized projects, both equivalent sized priorities, both you're being told is urgent. How do you manage that? And it's not easy. It's not easy. You need to have a conversation. Then you say, okay, well, look, this is what I'm dealing with. What is the art of the possible here? When do you absolutely need it? Not when do you want it, when do you absolutely need it? And then you pull out the stops. You get help. And well, the good thing is, I work in an organization currently where there is that support. We are very collegiate, within the law department, but also across the business. So if you need to pull in help, you can do it, and there are people willing to step up, and that's awesome.
Okay, big legal function, and that it must help as well.
Well, it does a little bit, yeah.
What's the biggest challenge facing the sector and being a lawyer in that space at the moment?
I think it's just there's a huge desire to procure a lot of things. I think the interesting thing about defence procurement, a lot of defence procurement, is it's not overnight either. You don't buy an aircraft carrier or a submarine overnight. These things are long lead time developments, and so you need to be thinking all the time about how it's going to pan out. What is the next thing coming down the pike? What's the next regulation coming down the pike? We see increasing regulation from Europe that we need to manage, and we need to say, okay, so last year we didn't have this issue to deal with. There was fewer reporting requirements in order to win contracts. This year there's a new EU regulation which is going to be brought in. How do we deal with that, and how do we get ourselves ready for those new regulations coming in? There's loads that are kind of in the pipeline right now, and so it's preparing the business, saying, okay, what do we need to do now to prepare ourselves? And you're dealing with a lot of challenges where things are developing all the time. Cyber, AI. Those are really, really
complicated.
Critical and complicated things, and getting your head around all of that and managing that, while at the same time having the bandwidth to continue to provide the support on the day-to-day stuff. So there's lots.
I can imagine. There's probably, just externally looking in, everything must be turbocharged, and the pace of change, the swings that I guess you perhaps see from geopolitical standpoints, and a lot happening.
And kind of your kind of customer's approach to what they want and what they need is being shaped constantly. You look at what's happening in the Ukraine war. There's 10, 15 years ago, people were buying tanks. You're not buying so many tanks now. You look at how Ukraine is dealing with kind of drones. Just that's the battle space of the future is going to be very different, and it's but it's exciting as well, and so you're kind of working with technology folk and kind of really cyber aware, switched on folk. They're saying, this is how we're going to deal with it, this is what we're going to do, and you're then thinking, how the heck are we going to manage that? How are we going to write a contract to address those risks? What even are those risks? So there's a lot of thinking time required on some of these things. A lot of fill in the spaces.
First time. First time. There's no precedent for this.
No, exactly.
Very good. Cool. And I ask every guest for a podcast or a book, or a podcast and a book recommendation, if you've got one.
So it's a pretty obvious one. The Rest is History. Big fan of that. I'm sure like lots of your past guests will kind of list that one.
Are you a history buff?
I enjoy my history. I did. It was actually one of my majors in my undergrad degree. So it was
What's been your favourite episode of that, of the rest?
Well, the last one with Hannibal was quite good. The kind of the Battle of Cannae. So,
I've not listened to that yet.
No.
I'm a podcast. What do they call it? Like passive listening. So I'll have something on most of the time.
That's right.
Where you're just like, probably listening to
I'll
too
do it
much.
while I'm doing my ironing or something like that.
And maybe one ear, like sort of one ear tuned in. And,
exactly.
Not quite, but and a book. I used to love Lord of the Rings. I haven't read it at all since the movies came out, but as a kid, I think I must have read it about 10, 15 times. Oh, really?
But a book that really I found really interesting a few years back was Sapiens by Yuval Harari. Just about how humans have adapted to the environment and shaped it, and that's just completely engrossing.
Fascinating. It's one of those that I've started, and I think probably moved to an audiobook and then haven't got quite through it.
That's the thing, but you kind of I think my attention span has also dropped off since
Yeah.
Twitter and everything
Yeah.
like that. It's all about the kind of the neural endorphin hits, isn't it?
Totally, yeah. Sucked into the TikTok generation. Yeah. Be lucky if people listen to a 40-minute podcast here. We need to create shorts as a result. But yeah, it's been really good speaking and hearing more about as I said, it's a sector that could be quite divisive and but interesting to see hear all the challenges and what it's like working within there. If anyone was interested about finding out a bit more, how would they get in touch? Would you be happy for them to get in touch?
Yeah, absolutely. My LinkedIn's up there. Yeah. Drop me a note.
Cool.
Happy to chat.
Nice.
Thanks so much, Scott.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cheers, Doug.
Cheers.
So that wraps up another episode of Lessons I Learned in Law, powered by Herriot Brown in-house legal recruitment. Now, I share these stories each week to help lawyers of all levels, and both in private practice or working in-house. And it doesn't matter if you're early in your career or you're already leading a team. Learning from your peers or from those who have walked in your shoes before, then this is the show for you. If you find it useful, I would love it if you could share it with your colleagues or share it with your network, or drop us a message just to let us know that you're listening and that you're out there. Feedback really helps us grow the show and take it in the direction that gives the most value to you, our listeners. So until next time, I've been Scott Brown. Thank you.